Hey everyone, how are you? I hope you're doing well. If you aren't, you're gonna be doing better after this video for sure. Absolutely. My name's Alyssa. I'm trying to remember to introduce myself at the beginning of the video. I'm here today to give you my January reading wrap up. Let me tell you, I only read 3 books in January, but at least I read 3 books. You know what I'm saying? My goal was 3. I read 3. I'm sorry, but that's good enough for me, you know? At least I'm reading. I'm going to talk about the 3 books that I read in January, and then I'm also going to tell you what books I want to read in February. So we're already a couple days into February, so I'm a little late, but I have been reading more, or I've finished 1 book already, so love that for me. I've been like a little bit more inclined to read this month for some reason. Maybe because it's like I'm trying to read like a lot of like romance stuff, and those are always very lighthearted and easy to get through. But also it's just the season of love, and I'm like, so cute. I just am like, oh, I just want to read about other couples because you know, I'm alone. Anyways, let's talk about the 3 books that I read in January. The first book that I read in January is Garden of the Cursed by Katie Rose Poole. I started this in December. So I'm going to say like books that I finished, like my wrap up is books that I finished, because apparently there has been like an argument about like whether or not you can count books toward the new year that you started in the last year. And I just want to know why we are coming up with so many rules for reading. Just read the books. It's just truly not that serious. This is the first book that I finished in January, and I gave it 3 stars. Miss Katie Rose Poole, love her. I don't know how many times I will bring her up, but the next book is coming out in a few months, I believe. I actually don't remember. It's coming out this year though. So I will be talking about her again because I will be reading it, obviously. Katie Rose Poole wrote one of my favorite trilogies ever, honestly. Like it's kind of surprising because I didn't like the first book, so that much. It was okay. It was a 3-star. So I like have a lot of hope that the second book in this duology, it's a duology, so there's only 2, but I have a lot of hope that the second one will be even better than this one. But let me tell you what it's about. Disclaimer before I explain this book: I'm really bad at explaining books, like without spoiling anything. I want to get better, so I'm gonna try. In Garden of the Curse, our main character is like the best curse breaker in the city. This is a city that is like kind of running rampant with, you know, magical gangs basically, and other people that you can just like buy curses from and curse people. So she's making like, you know, she's making her money like breaking these curses basically. And one day this guy comes to her and has like basically an unbreakable curse. And turns out the guy is like this guy that she used to have a crush on when she was like in high society in this city. So he's like, you know, the son of like one of the richest families in the city, and she used to be his best friend. So, you know, we're getting a little, you know, conflict of interest here basically. So he asks her to break this curse for him, right? And she's like, I really don't want to do that, but my mom disappeared a couple months ago, and I feel like if I'm like, you know, back in the high society to like help break this curse, then somehow I can find out more about why my mom disappeared. You get what I'm saying? Like, she was like, I don't really want to help you break this curse because we used to be best friends, and then you wrote me off and stopped talking to me. But also, at the same time, I do want to find out what happened to my mom. So you are my easiest route into this like high society. So I'm going to use you. Basically, that's what happens. They end up fake dating somehow in this high society. And she's like trying to figure out like, she is trying to break his curse because he's paying her. You would do it too for a check. You know what I'm saying? So she's trying to break his curse. She's also trying to figure out what happened to her mom. He's like trying to figure out why she doesn't like him because he, for some reason, doesn't understand why our boy's so stupid. The way that everything's like weaved into each other and like all the reveals as you get through the book. Chef's kiss. Loved it. But the thing that I didn't love about this book was that the first like 50% of it, I was like, what is going on? Like, I wasn't confused. It just felt so slow to me. I was like, I don't really care about any of these characters. I don't really care about this storyline. I don't care about anything. Like, I have no reason to care. You know what I mean? But I pushed through because, like I said, Katie Rose Poole is my girl. And when I read that first book of hers, the very first book, her debut, I was not very into the characters at first either. Like, I was like, okay, why should I care? You know what I mean? But then they ended up being like my besties by the end. So I had faith, and I'm glad that I had faith because I am excited to read the next book. But I will say, you got to push through that first half and like get to where the story starts to get interesting. Because yeah, it takes about 50% of the way through the book where I was like, am I gonna finish this? It took me like over a month to finish this book because I was like, I don't know if I really am into this. But second half of the book, very strong. First half of the book, It was a 3-star read. My first finished book of the year. The second book that I read this month, or finished this month really, is Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. Loved it. Beautiful. It was a 4-star read for me. I read Winter's Orbit, and I liked this better than Winter's Orbit. I thought this book was so well paced. I actually am still appalled by how good the pacing was for me. Like, for some people, it might have been too slow, but I thought it was just like perfectly like, everything. It was the pacing. I could wax poetic about the pacing in this book for like 30 minutes. It was so well paced to me. This book is also fake dating, kind of. What's going on? It's set in space. If you've read Winter's Orbit, it's like, I think it's like the same universe, not the same planet. In this book, there are architects and there are readers. Basically, readers, it's what it sounds like. They can like read other people's minds. And architects, they can like basically get people to do what they want, like mind control kind of. The main characters are, one's a reader, one's an architect. The reader, he's very like, just kind of a mess. He's a very like, he's just living his life in a way that his aunt, she's basically the president, and his aunt really doesn't like how kind of insane that he acts, even though he's just living his life. He's a very powerful reader, and in this world, people are very wary of readers. They don't want, reading without permission is illegal. I think also like the architects aren't allowed to like mind control people without permission, but they do it anyway. Like, they're like the higher class, like it's architects, readers. The main character, the reader, he's like acting insane. His aunt gets him conscripted into the army, which is just so like, why? That is just such a like big jump. Like, oh, I don't like how you're living your life, go to the army. What? That's crazy. Anyway, his aunt gets him conscripted into the army, and then she enlists an architect's help to like basically control him for life. They call it a sync, like to sync them. So what syncing is, the architect and the reader, they come together. And usually with how strong our main character is, like he's a really powerful reader, right? Usually writer or architects can't write him, what they call writing, which is like the mind control, right? Usually it's like really hard for them to like write him because he's very powerful. But with the sync, the person who he's synced up to can very easily write him. So basically his aunt wants to control him by using this like architect to like sync them together so that the architect will do his like army duties, and then he will make the reader do his army duties as well. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. The architect that she chooses, or that ends up doing it, he's like very, very like morally, he's like very morally upright, right? So he's like, oh, I didn't know that you didn't want to sync with me, so I'm not gonna do it. They decide to pretend that they are synced and see what happens, basically. That's all I feel like I can say. I don't know how much the summary says, but basically a lot more happens than that. But the main part of it is like them trying to figure out like, how do we pretend to be synced, because it's supposed to be basically like marriage. They're never gonna be apart, because they have this idea in the world that like aren't many synced like architect reader couples. So they have this idea that basically it's like romantic to be synced. So they have to like pretend to be synced and like fool like everyone in the army and stuff. Honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so juicy. The more juicy part of it was the political intrigue. Winter's Orbit was the same way. I was like, the politics in this are just so good. I don't think that romance is like that big of a deal in here. It is. It's way more of a deal than in Winter's Orbit, but really it's the political intrigue every time. Like, if you aren't into like space politics, you shouldn't read this book. Space politics is really all it is. And I loved it because I like space politics. I'll say it. This book was 4 stars, and I will be reading anything that Everina Maxwell puts out in the future. My third book for January was nonfiction, and I listened to it through audio. So, like, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Paved Paradise, How Parking Explains the World. I am deeply in my transportation era, if that makes sense. It doesn't. I don't know why I said that. It doesn't make sense. What I mean is that I really enjoy public transportation. For those of you who don't know, I lived in Europe for like 9 months. Spain specifically, and the transportation there was just so good. It was so good, and I miss it daily. Honestly, like, even before that, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, we need more public transportation. But after that experience, I was like, oh my gosh, we need, like, it is imperative that we have more transportation, more public transportation than we have now in the US. This was kind of like my first, like, what is the word, like, soiree or foray? Is it foray? You know what I mean. My first like toe dip into the vast ocean that is public transportation. This was just specifically about parking and how parking, like parking minimums, parking maximums, paying for parking, like all that kind of stuff kind of like shapes the way that we drive in the US. I don't know why it says How Parking Explains the World. Most of the book was about the US. And like it did mention other countries, but I was like, okay, that's an interesting title. Honestly, it kind of explains how parking explains human behavior. At one point, he mentions how like the only reason why we drive a lot of times is because there will be free parking. There was research done at a workplace in Seattle where basically they started asking employees to pay for parking and less of them started driving. You know, either they carpooled or they rode public transportation or they did this, they did that. And so it kind of like shows how the you know, free parking industry, if you will, kind of like makes us want to drive more because there will be free parking, you know, or drive less to places where there aren't free parking. Two sides of the same coin. So yeah, it was a very interesting book. I gave it 3 stars because I listened to it on audio. I definitely know that I missed a lot versus like someone who read it with their eyes. I don't need to know everything there is to know about parking. I don't need to know every word in this book. I got the gist. And I enjoyed the gist. So 3-star read. Overall, the books that I read in January were pretty okay. They were just okay. I didn't love them. I didn't hate any of them. They were just fine. So I'd say that's a win for me, personally. I hope to read more in February. My goal is 3 books a month, though. So if I don't, it's okay. I've already finished 1 book in February, which is nice. So I'm already ahead of schedule. I just want to speed run all the books that I want to read in February. And there's like 7 of them. So will I get to all 7? Absolutely not. I won't. I know I won't. Here we go. Currently I'm reading Happy Place by Emily Henry. I said I would read Book Lovers first. I lied. I don't care. I just want to read this book so bad. So I'm 65 pages in. It's cute or whatever. It's not cute yet, but it will be. Next book is for a book club. It's Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I have a YA book club. I chose this book for March, or to talk about in March. So this is the next book I want. I need to read. This is like, I don't have a choice. I have to read this one because it's for a book club. Then I want to read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. If you remember, this was in my 2024 TBR, like the 12 books that I want to read in 2024. Next, I've had this book for too long and I think I need to read it because it's February and it's Black History Month and it's the season of love. I need to do it. So that's Love is a Revolution by Renee Watson. It's just, I just love this cover. Like green. I need Black folks to wear more green immediately. Like me. Oh my gosh, I'm wearing green right now. I love green. And she's just so beautiful. Like, I need to read this. Next one, speedrun. This is kind of an epic love story by Case and Calendar. I'm in a Case and Calendar mood. I don't know what that means for me. I've read Felix Ever After like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years ago. I don't remember. The book that I read in February that I've already read in February was also Case and Calendar. And I just feel like I've had this book for too long. I need to finish it. I need to read it. Next two are from Raylo authors. Sorry guys. The Raylos will always win. In my book, they will always win. The Raylos will always win. The first one is You Again by Kate Goldbeck. And I had no idea about this book until Cindy from With Cindy read it and talked about it, and I was like, that actually sounds so good. I just got this the other day. I really want to read it. The Raylos literally can't lose. In my book, I'm sorry. Raylos on top. And the last one is by my queen, Allie Hazelwood. It's Check and Mate, which is also in my 12 books that I want to read in 2024. So that's like the 85 books that I want to read in February, the shortest month of the year. Wish me luck. Also, I need to finish Iron Widow. Started it in January, didn't finish it. So I'm going to do that for sure. I've been in a reading mood, so honestly, maybe I could get through a chunk of those. I don't know. And they're all like they're all mostly romance, or I believe. So like, honestly, it's pretty easy for me to get through a romance book. So I have faith. I have faith in myself. You have faith in me, right? You better. So we'll see. I'll see you in March for my February wrap up. We'll see if I'm just over ambitious. I am. But I believe in myself. I can do it. Let me know what you read in January if you want. And what you want to read in February if you want. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.